Hello everyone, my name is Alyssa Samansky. I am originally from Windsorville, Connecticut, and currently live in Apollo Beach, Florida. After high school, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and graduated from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte with a Bachelor of Arts in Special Education with a concentration in Communications and English. After college, I started teaching in a public school, elementary school. I was teaching K through 8 in a resource setting, so it was a pullout at that time. We did not use the inclusion model. After a couple of years of teaching, I decided to make a huge career change and work in marketing and broadcasting in NASCAR, and then decided after 10 years I went back to teaching special education. One of the most ethical dilemmas I have encountered in my professional teaching career was a situation where I was having an initial eligibility meeting for a kindergarten student. The meeting was set up for a Friday morning, and about 15 minutes before the meeting, I was informed by our assistant principal that they were going to retain this child. Unfortunately, that was shocking to me because I had been in contact daily about this situation. At that meeting, we were looking at the eligibility of autism spectrum disorders, and the parents were scheduled to come in 15 minutes, and of course that was a huge shock to me because I had already drafted an IEP for this child. In fact, he was actually on grade level in all areas except for writing. He was still a little behind in writing because that is one of his deficits. So of course I was a little frantic because I was blindsided by this situation, even though I remained in contact with everyone on our IEP team, his classroom teacher, his assistant, my principal, counselor, school psychologist, and the assistant principal. They somehow forgot to tell me that they had a meeting, or they were going to have a meeting the day before this particular meeting was scheduled. And decided without input from all parties involved that they were going to retain this child. Of course, I had a very difficult time with swallowing that information because I did not feel that was best practice for this child, and I was scheduled to have this meeting with the parents and all of our team members. And I didn't know how I would tell a parent, or how can I pretend to tell a parent, your child is on grade level, my goals for him are to be at the end of a first grade level within a year. This happened to be at the end of his kindergarten year, so this was really like in May, and then he was going to be promoted to first grade, and then also, so my goals for a year's worth of growth was for him to be on level at an ending first grade level in all academic areas. So my first thought was, how do I tell a parent that this is what I expect from him, and these are my expectations of him, when they were going to have a conversation with this mom on the following Monday to say that they were going to retain him. So that was a huge dilemma for me. In fact, I broke down in tears. That was probably not the most professional thing, but I went and talked to my principal, and she informed me that she did not have anything to do with that decision, and it definitely didn't have to be finalized. And I explained the situation of, how do I tell this mother and father that their son is doing great and he's making great progress, he's on level in all subject areas except for the writing piece, which is to be expected, and that's something we can work on. And over the weekend, when they come back on Monday, they're going to tell them that he is going to be retained. So to me, that was very unethical. How do I look someone in the eye and tell them these are my expectations again, and I knowing that what they want to tell them on Monday? So I told my principal that I really needed to cancel this meeting, postpone it to the following week, because I can't tell a parent that's totally against my philosophy of education, and that was unfair for them to be blindsided. And especially with the progress that he's made, I didn't think that was a best practice move. So long story short, yes, I shed some tears, and yes, I had a heart-to-heart with my principal, and got the speech pathologist involved, and all of our other IEP team members, including the psychologist and our counselor and our assistant principal and his classroom teacher, and also his assistant in the kindergarten classroom. And I went over everything, and we all agreed that that was not best practice and that he should not be retained. So I rescheduled the meeting. The parent met with us, and he had an amazing first grade year. It was the best thing for him. He needs to be with his same age peers, and he thrived in first grade and was on level. Unfortunately, in the meantime, I left this school, and so I don't know how he's doing, but I know that he had a great first year. So I felt really good about shedding a few tears and actually speaking with my principal and really standing up for what's right. That was really difficult to approach that situation because they had already made this decision. But yeah, I knew it wasn't right. It wasn't right. It wasn't best for the child. Not only that, but I can't look a parent in the eye and say that my expectations were very high for him, and knowing what he's capable of in the future, and having those conversations with a parent, I felt was just completely unethical. So what would I do over again? I probably wouldn't shed as many tears, but I get very invested in my students, and I care about them. So I guess that's where my heart was. So in the future, I would, I actually had this conversation with my principal and assistant principal that, anytime that they're thinking about retaining a child, it would really be best if they involved everyone that, services that child, because, ultimately we know where their child is at and what they're capable of doing. And retention is not always the best answer, especially with children with disabilities, and especially children with autism. He may have that deficit for the rest of his life, but he's going to learn some coping skills, and he's going to get through it. But retaining him really with no evidence to base that off of, other than they just didn't think he was ready to move on to first grade, I'm not really sure. They didn't really have an answer for that. So again, I'm happy that I fought for what was right for him, and in the future that just continue having those conversations with administration and classroom teachers is best practice. Anyway, I know I'm a little long-winded, but I'm excited to get to know all of you and work with you all throughout the semester, and good luck to everyone.